The shelter was quiet that morning, the kind of silence that made you feel like time had slowed down. Sunlight poured into the windows, casting a warm glow on the rows of cages. Each cage held a dog, waiting for its forever home. Among them was Max, a dog who had been here for longer than anyone could remember. His fur was dull, his once bright eyes dimmed with time. He had become an invisible presence, blending into the background. Max was a dog who had given up on hoping. But what Max didn't know was that today was different. Today, someone from his past would walk through that door, a person who had once loved him, a person who had left him behind. Max didn't expect it, but his heart knew. As soon as the door creaked open, a familiar scent filled the air, and his ears perked up. His body went still, like a deer sensing danger. But this wasn't danger. It was something he hadn't felt in a long time: recognition. The man walked in slowly, his eyes scanning the room, unaware that the dog who had been waiting for him was just a few feet away. But Max knew. He knew it was him. The man took a step closer, and everything inside Max seemed to explode. His heart raced, his tail began to wag, and for the first time in weeks his eyes were bright. Could it be? Could this be the man he had once called home? Max's heart pounded in his chest, a drumbeat echoing in the quiet shelter. His body trembled, but not from fear. No, this was different. This was recognition. The man who had entered the shelter was the one. Max had been waiting for him, though he never imagined it would be like this. He had resigned himself to the thought that the man might have forgotten him, that his old life was gone. But now, seeing him standing just feet away, Max felt his hope flare back to life. The man, too, seemed to sense the change in the atmosphere. His steps slowed as he neared Max's cage. Their eyes locked. It was as if the world around them faded away. Time seemed to stand still as recognition spread between them like a silent electric current. The man's face softened with a look of confusion, then surprise. Could it really be? Max! The man's voice trembled, as though he could hardly believe it himself. Max's tail wagged faster and faster, as if it were trying to express every emotion that had been building up inside him for so long. It's him. It's really him. Max stood up on shaky legs, pressing his face against the bars of the cage. His eyes never left the man, and he couldn't contain the wave of emotion crashing over him. He wanted to leap out of the cage, run to the man, but his body was frozen. He couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Instead, he whimpered softly. The noise was a quiet plea. Don't leave me again. Please. The man reached out slowly, as if testing the waters. He extended his hand through the bars of the cage, his fingers trembling. Max let out another whimper and nudged his face against the hand, feeling the warmth of the touch he had longed for. The man closed his eyes for a moment, his heart breaking at the sight of Max's desperate need. I'm so sorry, he whispered, his voice cracking. Max's ears perked up at the words. He didn't understand fully, but somehow he knew that they were important. The man took a deep breath, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. He knew this moment was going to change everything. He couldn't just leave Max here again. He couldn't let him suffer like this any longer. With a quiet sob, he bent down and unlocked the cage. Max's heart leapt as the door clicked open. Max, too overwhelmed with joy, could barely contain himself. He burst through the cage door, almost knocking the man over as he jumped into his arms. The man staggered back a few steps, but caught himself. Max's tail was wagging so hard it was almost a blur. The man cradled him in his arms, pulling him close. For a moment, they just stood there, holding each other. The shelter, the noise, the chaos of the world outside, they didn't matter anymore. All that mattered was a reunion between man and dog. Max's eyes were wide, filled with love and pain. He licked the man's face, as though asking for forgiveness for all the time they had lost. The man returned the gesture, burying his face in Max's fur, whispering words of love and apology. I'm so sorry I left you, buddy. I'll never leave you again, the man promised, his voice hoarse with emotion. As the man held Max in his arms, the weight of years without him began to crush his chest. He had waited so long to be reunited with Max, but now that the moment had come, the guilt was overwhelming. Every inch of Max's thin, worn body reminded him of how long he had been away. The fur was matted in places, the once vibrant coat now dull and lifeless. He began to remember the day he had left. It had been a whirlwind of excuses, lies, and half-hearted promises. At the time, it seemed like the right decision. He had been young, overwhelmed, and unsure of his own path. Max had been a puppy, full of energy, and he had needed more than the man could give at that point in his life. "I'm sorry," the man whispered, pressing his forehead against Max's. "I should have never left you." Max shifted slightly, lifting his head to look into the man's eyes. He seemed to understand the man's words, as though he was saying, "It's okay. I understand." Max didn't blame the man. He only cared about one thing now, being with him again. The love was still there, buried beneath the years apart. But it was there. The man pulled back slightly and looked at Max. The dog's eyes, though dimmed by time, still held the warmth and affection that the man had always known. He reached down and gently stroked Max's head, brushing away the stray fur. Every touch sent a jolt of emotion through his body. How could he have abandoned the sweet dog? How could he have let him suffer all this time without even knowing? He felt tears sting his eyes again. "Max, I failed you, but I won't fail you anymore." The man's promise was firm, the weight of it settling deeply in his heart. "I'm here now. I'm not leaving. We're going home," he said, his voice low but resolute. Max's tail wagged weakly in response. He didn't need any more words. The bond they shared was unspoken, yet unbreakable. The man looked around the shelter. It was a good place for dogs, but it was not a home. Max needed a home. He needed love, stability, and a family. And that was exactly what he would give him. "We're going home, buddy," the man repeated, more to himself than to Max. The journey wasn't over, but it had taken a new direction. Max looked up at the man with trust, his eyes reflecting everything the man needed to hear. "You came back for me. I'm not alone anymore." The drive home felt like a dream for Max. The car hummed gently along the road, and Max sat in the front seat, his head resting on the man's lap. The air in the car smelled different, more like home, more like the man who had once been his world. As they drove past familiar streets, Max's tail wagged faintly. Everything felt strangely familiar, as though he was coming back to where he belonged. The man glanced down at Max. He hadn't seen his dog in so long, and yet it felt as if no time had passed at all. Max had been through so much. He had waited for so long, hoping that the man would come back. And now he was here, right by his side. As they pulled up to the house, Max's eyes widened. He sniffed the air, his nose twitching. "This smells like home," he thought, his heart swelling with emotion. The car stopped in front of the familiar house, a place Max had once known well. The man opened the door, and Max bolted out, running to the front yard with the excitement of a dog who had just discovered a new world. He sniffed the flowers, ran through the grass, and explored every corner of the yard. The man followed, chuckling softly. Max paused for a moment, looking back at the man with a bright look in his eyes. He wanted the man to see how much he appreciated the second chance. This was home. The man stepped forward, crouching down beside Max. "You remember this place, don't you, buddy?" he asked softly. Max's tail wagged vigorously as he nodded his head, as if saying, "Yes, I remember. This is where I belong." The man smiled, tears welling up again as he watched Max running around in joy. He knew this was only the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter where Max would never have to feel abandoned again. Life with Max at home became a simple joy. They spent mornings in the yard, playing fetch and watching the sunrise. The man was more present than ever before. No longer distracted by the chaos of life, he focused entirely on the bond he had with Max. They went on long walks, shared quiet evenings on the couch, and even took naps together. Max had regained his health, both physically and emotionally. His coat began to shine again, his eyes brightening with every passing day. He had come home, and so had the man. At night, they would sit by the fireplace, the warm glow lighting up the room. Max would curl up next to the man, his head resting on his lap as they watched the flames dance. The peace that filled the room was a far cry from the days of uncertainty. This was what Max had waited for, a family, a home. And the man had finally found redemption. not just in his own eyes, but in Max's as well. Max wasn't just a dog anymore. He was family, and as the man looked down at him, he realized he would never let him go again.